welcome back to the White Coat Club. My name is Lindsay, and I'm here with Nicole. We're both counselors at MinPrep. And as you guys know, this is one of our first podcasts of 2025. So we thought we'd take a few moments to reflect on goals for students and what they should be working on next. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to like and subscribe to get more BSMD and med school admission advice. All right. So Nicole, what do you think kids should do as ninth graders for the new year?
Yeah, ninth grade, super important. You guys have started the school year hopefully strong. We're about halfway through. So I think the first thing that you probably want to do is reflect a little bit. Think about your school year so far. Think about your first semester, the grades, the work, like your own personal output, and maybe try to work on some of your study habits, time management, or just find some room for adjustment. Not saying that you didn't do everything perfectly. There's just always places that you could improve on. This is also where we're getting close to your first set of AP exams. So have a plan for that. You don't need to start studying today, but definitely have a plan for studying for that and what that's going to look like. Again, that's kind of with that time management that we talked about in the prior. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is focus on what classes you'll be taking next year and beyond. The courses that you took this year were likely, you may not have had as much options. So this is now finally the time that you'll have a lot of different choices. So I like to usually have students set goals for the next 3 years of what they plan to take, especially in their major subjects. So academic wise, those are probably the first three things to focus on.
Yeah, and then more on the extracurricular side, now is a really great time to evaluate your future as well on this side of things, because summer activities do fill up quick. Some of them have, like, if you want to do a summer program or you want to sign up for a class, they might have deadlines that'll be any time from January through March or even later, kind of on a first come, first serve basis. So start to plan for how you want to spend your summer. And so some of our students will also start thinking about like passion projects they might want to be hosting or starting over the summer. Now's a great time to brainstorm and kind of set the wheels in motion for that. I believe we talked quite a bit about passion projects in the past. So if you do have any doubts about what a passion project is, check out our previous podcast on that subject. And then last but not least, as you're starting to plan your summer, plan it out for the future too. Check out age restrictions for specific goals and start to make a long-term plan, because when you're in eighth grade, you are usually under the age of 16. That means that not all opportunities will be open to you. Shadowing sometimes does have certain age restrictions. If you want to sign up for like an EMS or EMT like certification course, usually you do have to be 16 if you're even eligible in your state to do so. A lot of research programs too will have different age restrictions if it's, you have to be 15, 16, or even 17 years old. So start to, as you make your summer plans for this year, start to bookmark some opportunities for the future as well.
Yeah, I think that came up a lot with in the past with my students with the age restrictions for things. Not everyone realizes and they have this plan of, oh, I'll do this summer, and then that doesn't always work out. So planning ahead, thinking about these things, doing the research now for what you might want to do is super helpful.
What about 10th graders? Some things might be similar, but what do you think 10th graders should be working on?
Yeah. I feel like sometimes people say like 10th graders like is like the lost year, but it doesn't have to be. Prepare, same thing as ninth grade AP testing. Maybe you didn't take as many APs last year, so maybe you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a breeze, I got this, but you might be having a few more this year. Plan accordingly, adjust your strategy. Not too early to start planning for when you'll take the SAT or the ACT. Plan ahead. I think a common misconception I get is students are like, oh, I'll just take it in this month, but they may not even have a test that month. So look at the calendar. College Board and ACT push out the calendar so far in advance. I know a lot of times people say, oh, I'm just going to take it in August, but then oops, it's the same exact week that you'll be on family vacation. So think ahead. Visit colleges this summer. That's definitely something that you could be doing, or starting to research colleges, and then decide where you might want to visit. But academic wise, keep, doing what you're doing. Same time that you can reflect this, you still do have time to, continue to boost up your GPA if you still maybe aren't where you want to be, but constantly readjusting.
Yeah. Yeah. Always kind of thinking about the past and thinking about how you can be better in the future as well. Kind of in the same vein of what we talked about for ninth grade, once again, you should be planning for the summer. You might also be thinking about how you can position yourself for leadership positions in junior year. Sometimes around this time, they'll have like elections for like president or vice president or treasurer of like certain clubs that you might be a part of. You might be thinking about like a organization that you want to start with your friends or whatever it might be. So start to position yourself for success in clubs and activities that you've been doing. Now is also a great time to make sure you're on a path that you like with your extracurriculars. Some clubs might be not what you were expecting, or, you don't necessarily contribute too much to them. So, it might be a good time to pivot in your later years to activities that you really do want to be spending your time on. Just because you've done it in ninth and 10th grade doesn't mean you have to continue on it in junior if it's not something that's bringing you a lot of joy. But in your 10th grade summer, you really could be volunteering, maybe attending some camps, starting to shadow, starting to do, as Nicole talked about, like the college visits and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of things that you could be doing in your 10th grade to still be productive and still, take advantage of the lost year.
Yeah.
All right. And as we move to 11th grade, it definitely starts to get more intense, I think. So what kind of things should 11th graders be focused on academically?
Yeah. This is go time. So testing for SAT, ACT should be finishing out. A similar note to what I said in 10th grade. We're no longer prepping for it. We're now finalizing it. Same thing we're prepping for AP testing, should be the same thing. And then, meeting with your counselor to figure out and make sure that you're on track, that you are set for graduation, making sure you have all those requirements. I know a lot of times with our STEM students, they're like ultra focused on wanting to do specific electives and they realize they never took a fine art class. So really just double checking all of those things. Meeting with your counselor now is a great thing too. You may not have had a great rapport with them so far just because you hadn't have needed to, but letting them know, hey, I'm planning to apply to these highly intensive schools. Like, this is my goal. This is my plan. Just making them aware, because you're definitely going to need them in the future. And then identifying two of your teachers who you plan to ask for letters of recommendation. You should be asking in the spring, before school is over. You should definitely not be waiting until the following school year. So get with them, have it in writing that they're, going to write it for you, follow up with them, and then start thinking about your college list. Like, 10th grade, hopefully you did some visits, maybe you did some visits in ninth grade. At this point, really making sure you have a really good grasp on where you're applying, what your profile looks like in terms of the schools that you're applying to. Or do we only have reaches on our list? Are we realistic with our goals? And then, I'm sure Lindsay's going to say too, plan to visit some of them in the summer.
And there might even be some like college fairs that your town might host, neighboring schools might host, that your school hosts. Especially in your junior year, you could be attending those, and that can be a great way if like you can't go fly to, if you're from Massachusetts, you can't fly to like a certain place that's, on the West Coast. It's really fine. Maybe they'll come to your school. It might open your eyes to a school that you would never thought of either. So definitely attend college fairs and take them seriously as you go through this process, especially in 11th grade, once your college goals start to finalize.
Yeah, they do. I think some kids will say like, oh no, there's no way that, Boston College is going to come to Texas. No, I'm sure they have her up there. I'm sure
Yeah.
they fly these people out. I think it's, people just don't assume that it's just too unfeasible, but it absolutely happens. So,
Mhm.
and I'm sure there's a fair happening near you where this type of thing is going on, or where these types of schools are going to be at. So when you meet with that school counselor, ask them, they'll know.
Mhm. Yeah. And it does not hurt to ask. And, maybe they'll have webinars or things like that. Or sometimes they'll do like student panels, which sometimes I think can be a little bit more helpful too, because you get like a more day in the life of a student type thing. So, um, even if you can't college visit because of time constraints, because of financial constraints, or just because you just like physically can't, it's totally fine. Um, it's still a good opportunity to go to college fairs or do some more online research. I'm gonna sound like a broken record too when it comes to juniors, but plan your summer. I think the junior year summer is pretty critical just because this one is one where it's obviously your last chance to really impress colleges, but also just like more opportunities that are opened up to students. As we talked about before, some schools or some programs, some opportunities might have age restrictions that you just had to wait until you were a junior to take advantage of them, or until you were at least 16. So some summer camps do have those restrictions, especially for like our BSMD students who want to do some more intensive like research, like bench lab research. That's really hard to get sometimes when you're not 16 just because of liability issues. And so a lot of our kids don't turn 16 until, they have gone to their junior year summer. And so this is really the time to take advantage of them. Same thing for like, as we talked about before, like EMT, EMS certifications. A lot of times kids can't get into those until their junior year, summer as well. And so look early. I know I had some kids who were looking like 2 to 3 months in advance last year, but honestly, like everything around them had filled up. They did manage to get on like a wait list and then get into the program, like a certification program, but it, was a little stressful for a little bit of time. So definitely look early and get a head start on those types of things. And then last junior year, if you haven't gotten leadership yet, it is like a good time to start looking. Don't have to get leadership positions in every club that you're in, or even most of them. You do want to have, I think, some leadership positions, especially if you are interested in BSMD. It's not a requirement by any means, but it does show like a different skill set that you might not be able to show in other areas. So if you haven't gotten one yet as a junior, try to see if there is like an election going on for one of your clubs and trying to participate and run for office there. Right. And we won't forget about 12th graders, because even though their college application journey is coming to an end, there's still a lot that they should be doing even in January. So what are some things that 12th graders should be working on?
Checking your academic portals for your applications that are still outstanding, even the ones that that you've gotten accepted to. Continue to check those very, very frequently. Look out for next steps, look out for missing items. Make sure you might have any outstanding interview requests if you're a BSMD student. A lot of this communication is coming through the portals. You should be checking them multiple times a week. FAFSA, if you have not yet completed the FAFSA, go ahead and get that done. And even if you have completed it, go back in and double check that you sent it to all of your schools. This is the time to now go in and edit, send to the additional schools that may not have got it on the first round. And then again, go into your portal, make sure that they've received it. It'll take a couple of days once you submit, but then log back in, make sure they have it. And then if your mid-year transcripts are required, or if you want to send them out, most schools should probably have their first semester grades finalized by now. So this would be a good time to get with your school counselor, ask them to send mid-year reports. It doesn't always happen without you asking. So make sure that you're asking for that. And yeah, just keep on track, get ready to start thinking about making a decision, but make sure you have all of the facts first.
One other thing too about academics is, even though you've already applied, maybe you've even been accepted to a school, your senior year grades, even second semester, still matter. So don't slack too much. Obviously senioritis will hit you, and that's okay, as long as it doesn't really impact your grades. I don't know if you've heard of it happening, Nicole. You've definitely seen a lot more.
I've absolutely seen it happen.
Yeah. Have
Too
they
many
like,
times.
and their acceptances have been rescinded?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is like
Mm-hmm.
my fear. So
Now,
don't.
don't be afraid to send in your mid-year report. I mean, don't lie, but I think I've seen it more so in like the second semester grades where it's now getting closer to graduation and they're catching wind of like your third quarter grades
Mhm.
and or your final grades.
Mhm.
And the final grades have been posted, your final transcript's been sent, and they're like, oh no, 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 this is not going to work. And now you're basically done with school, done with
Mhm.
high school, and you're looking for what else can I potentially do? Where
Mhm.
else can I go? So definitely finish strong. This is not a time to say, oh, you know what? I told everyone that I was going to take, Calc BC second semester, but I'm going to drop it and they'll never know. They'll know. Don't
No.
do it. Not worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely not worth it, and a lot more stress too. So, I mean, if like, let's say you are a 4.0 student and you get like 1B in your senior year, like, we're definitely not talking about you. I know we'll have some kids that
Yes.
kind of panic
Yeah.
about that. It is like kind of a crash and burn type situation where maybe there are like several C's or things like that, or even worse. And so I don't even know if several C's, depending on the school, I suppose, could.
It depends on the student, depends on the situation.
So,
Yeah.
oh, you get 1C, you're definitely out, or things like that. It will depend on the school, depend on the program, depend on a lot of different things. So this is universal advice. It's hard to be like really specific with those types of things, but yeah, just continue to maintain grades.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully make some good choices in the next few weeks. You probably won't find out about, if you're a BSMD student, you might not find out until April. If you're applying for Ivy Leagues, you probably won't find out till April, unless you did early decision, of course. And then other schools will kind of trickle in depending on which school it is. So just keep an eye out for things and pay attention to any steps that you might need to take.
Yeah, check your emails too, at
Mhm.
least, once a day, definitely. And this
And
is like the habit now that you should be in from now on.
it's true. Yeah, that's a good point. And honestly, check your spam and your promotions folder too. I was like
Yes.
talking to a girl. It wasn't like a big school by any means. I can't remember which school it was, but it was like her first college acceptance. She didn't get the email. Her mom didn't get the email, but her dad, for whatever reason, got the email. But then when we went and looked in her spam folder, that's where her like acceptance to a school was. And she could have looked on her portal and found it, but it didn't necessarily matter because she knew she got accepted. But still, if it's an interview request and it goes to spam, I've had that happen before to a student and he missed the interview and they didn't care. They didn't reschedule it. So not seeing something is not an excuse, essentially. So make sure to pay
Yeah.
attention.
And there's probably some accepted students days coming up
Mhm.
too. So even if you might have already visited the school, for sure you want to go there. It's not a bad idea to go to accepted students day, even if you're like, maybe not. Check it out because a lot of times that could be a deciding factor for kids as well.
I do agree with that. Yeah. I think the more research you can do, the more, hopefully, the happier you'll be at the place. Just because it's always hard to know what life is going to be like, but at least it will give you some idea of what you're going to be getting yourself into.
Yeah. And sometimes they're like more fun than just like a regular tour, and like the people that you're meeting, you're actually like could be your peers for the next 4 years. And, you can make connections and things like that. So seeing the other types of people that have also been accepted that would be in the class
Yeah.
that you're in, like, has definitely swayed people.
Hmm. I believe it. I mean, our advice was kind of universal across the board, but just make sure to continue working hard throughout this process and don't drop the ball no matter where you're at. Every month is critical, and moving forward towards your goals, setting goals and having like a long-term plan in place will help you through this process.
I agree. Start strong. This is the time. Plan ahead.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Ooh, all right. Well, I think that's it for us. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe to White Coat Club on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening to us at. But we'll see you in a couple weeks.